All right, and we are live. So this is actually take two. So this is Jason Hall here with the DoorGrow Show, hanging out with Tim Wehner of Dodson Property Management, and we're going to be talking about company culture and branding, or I guess creating an environment that is attractive to the right people and building a team that I guess works well together. And so, Tim, welcome to the show.
Jason, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, my hair did not get that this was take two. It thought it was pre-makeup. So hopefully it'll be cooperating a little bit better this time.
Luckily, people listening later on the podcast won't get to see your hair. So
got it. Good.
So yeah. So so we were talking before, and then we had some internet issues, and so we're starting this over. But so let's talk about attracting, what it takes, what's kind of the foundational pieces to attracting the right people. Because I think a lot of people get really caught up on this idea that they need to know the right disc profile for a person. They need to have the right list of criteria, and they get really anal and mental about all of this stuff to create and find the right person. And they feel like everybody is lying, and they have to, all this kind of stuff. So if we just take a real high level step back, what's foundational to creating a company that works?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I agree with your comments about kind of getting stuck on some of the wrong details. It's like anything in life, it's easy to see things as they sometimes are, as you want them to be, as opposed to as they actually are. But I think foundationally, what you really have to do, and again, I want to reiterate, well, I'm not reiterating because it was on the last take, but I want to make sure people know that this is not, I don't want to necessarily, I'm going to talk about Dodson Property Management's culture, but I want to make sure that people know it's not important to copy our culture to grow your business or to have a successful business. It's important to find out what yours is. And I think foundationally, what you need to look at is, writing out and living your purpose, or what some people call a mission statement, and your company values, and then your vision as to where you're going. And from there, all of this stuff starts to make a little bit more sense, and you can take small steps instead of trying to take one huge step. You can take 10 small steps and be successful.
Yeah, I love this idea that the most important thing is to get clarity on the intention or the purpose for the business. And that's going to be different for every business, even if you're in the same business category. So every property management company does not have the same why or purpose behind it.
Absolutely. No, I'm sorry to cut you off, Jason, but I mean, I just want to make sure that point is hit on, because that's absolutely true. I mean, we do things a lot differently than a lot of companies. Our office environment, people who have visited have said, "How did you do that?" And it's kind of something that's sprung itself naturally by getting and attracting the people that love where we're going and where we're headed and what we're doing right now. Where we're headed is not going to be the same place somebody else is going to be headed. Even if somebody wants to grow 100 doors or 200 doors this year, that may be where they stop. We're not going to stop. So it's all about, finding what's working for you and creating that experience for your clients and your customers as you grow. You can't always be there as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, and you can't have every conversation with every client, but it's about finding people that will have those conversations and represent you in the same vein as you would want, as you would have that same conversation.
Cool. So let me ask you about Dodson. So Dodson, You guys have about how many doors in your portfolio? Give people kind of a perception of the scale that you guys have achieved.
Sure. So on the residential side, we've got two different departments. One is what we call our single family side, which is a little bit misleading because it actually is anything 10 units in one place or under. Mm-hmm. And we have, I think at last count, 1,477 properties in that department. We also have a multifamily community management department that manages about, I think it's close to 4,000 now. I don't have as much to do with that side of the business anymore. My role is vice president of single family management. So we also have a commercial department as well that manages, I think, just over 100,000 square feet of commercial space.
Okay, great. So this company is almost 3 different companies then.
Yeah, and so that's a challenge in itself, and that's what, again, that foundational piece of mission, vision, and values is so important. It's not easy. It's something that we're working on, especially because part of our growth over the years has been acquiring and merging with companies. So it's not an easy task to merge or acquire a company and have that same purpose and make sure that those values, when you're acquiring employees or bringing those on, that's an important aspect of it, because what you can't do is grow, and whether it's hiring or acquisitions or mergers, you can't grow and bring people in the door that don't share your values. Because at the end of the day, I think Duke Dodson, my boss, one of his favorite phrases is that thoroughbreds don't like to be around donkeys. And it took me a while. I'm not from Fredericksburg, Virginia, so I didn't quite understand that one. But the point is that people who are high performers in your organization are going to feel dragged down when they're around people who aren't living your values, they're not participating in company events, and they're not getting the job done. And so it's important, again, whether you're hiring, merging, or acquiring, to make sure that all those folks share your values. And so again, we go back to that foundation of mission, vision, and values. And if everybody's going the same place, it's going to make it a lot easier to get there fast.
Now, you had mentioned that if people come to your office, it just seems a bit different than something they're used to. So give people kind of an idea. If they come into your office, what are they going to see? What stands out to them? What's kind of different?
I think it's just from everything from the way you're greeted at our front door. Currently we have somebody named Sarah. She's sitting up there, and she just does a fantastic job of really just representing who we are with a smile on her face. Not that you're not going to go to other offices and get a smile, but it's just the way she presents herself, the way our office looks, and then the interaction with each other. It's a little bit cliche to say that we work hard and play hard and we're just like a family. I've been to other offices that say those sorts of things. I got to tell you, it's a lot different here. There's a little bit of I guess vulgarity sometimes, and a little bit of fun and playfulness, but it's all with the intention of again, going the same place. And our goal is to deliver a living experience unlike any other. And whatever it takes to get there, I think is kind of how we accomplish it. And with that goes a lot of trust in each other. We've got an environment where we've got some pods that we put together, and allows our employees to lean on each other, and allows our employees to develop relationships with each other that are going to be long lasting. And I think when you have long lasting relationships and people trust each other within your organization, I don't have to do much because of that. They take us where we're going because they know where we want to go, and they do it together.
So I now want to ask you more about that environment that you've created, but let's go back to the vision, the values, and the mission. And you probably don't know all of these things off the top of your head, but could you give us kind of a high-level overview of your perception of what is Dodson all about?
So I can kind of give it to you off of my head, and that's maybe part of the difference.
Yeah, perfect.
So our purpose statement is to create a living experience that instills a sense of trust, comfort, and pride. And so when we were developing that, there's a tendency in property management to focus on property manager and owner or client. And I use air quotes around client for no particular reason at all, but it's just fun to do. So we were intentional about the fact that we wanted to create a purpose statement that encompassed both the relationship from client, which is our owners, to our tenants, who we call customers, and everything in between. Our relationship with our tenants, our relationship with our clients. Because I think that sometimes gets lost in property management, is that your relationship with your tenant is just as important as it is with with your owner. And so when we say trust, comfort, and pride, we really mean that our tenants will trust us, our owners will trust us, our owners will feel comfortable with having difficult conversations with us. Our tenants will feel the same way, and our owners will have enough pride in their asset, their home, that they will take care of it. And we give our tenants a sense of pride, in the sense that whether they're in the nicest house or somewhere not so nice, that they have pride in where they are, and they know that we'll be taking care of them. They know our clients will be taking care of them. So I think that's important when we talk about our purpose. Our values are to be empathetic, to be honorable, to be driven, and to be courageous. And so we've got some fun, even when we write that out and on our picture board, we've got some fun phrases on there, like being courageous means to eat the frog, meaning to have your most difficult conversation early in the morning. As the phrase go, if you eat a bullfrog first thing in the morning, the rest of your day is going to be pretty good. I've never tried that exactly, but I would imagine that that's actually correct. And then, I think the most important thing that we have as far as mission, vision, values is our vision. And it's a little bit long and drawn out, so forgive me, but I'm fairly passionate about it. So I like to talk about it. But it's to positively impact over 500,000 lives by the year 2025 by cultivating a team of the brightest, most trustworthy, and innovative people who are constantly raising the bar for our industry. So, that's where we want to go. We want to positively impact people. It's all about, you mentioned why, right? Simon Sinek, why are we in this business? And for the most part, for us, it's a people business. And it's not just a focus on our clients, but it's also a focus on our tenants and customers. And within that vision is also our community. You can't impact 500,000 lives, at least where we were employee-wise when we were at, without making an impact on the community as well. And I think you see that throughout our culture and organization. Just this week we did an offsite event where we actually went to a couple of cemeteries in a lower income area part of town that are 150-year-old cemeteries that have been overgrown. They look like forests, and there's an organization that helps clean those up and finds headstones of folks from 100 years ago that their ancestors have never seen, because these cemeteries have gone in complete disrepair. Just things like that we try to do to impact the community and not just focus on business every minute of the day.
Love it. So in line with this, so we can drive this home for the listeners, I want to share our values here at DoorGrow, right? A little bit of this. So my personal why statement is to inspire others to love true principles. And once I got clear on that, everything time management no longer mattered to me. That was that really distracted me from that. It became energy management. Like, what is really in line with my purpose and what is not? And how can I be doing the things that I most enjoy, most love, and that most fulfill me? And that really, what that boils down to inspire others to love true principles, sounds a little woo-woo or weird, but what that means is, to me, is to figure out what works. I love learning and finding out what works and sharing it with other people. And that's something I would just do for free, for fun. It's just something I enjoy doing. That's what I'm doing during sales. That's what I'm doing in conversations like this. It's just fun for me. And so our business is an extension of that. The why statement for DoorGrow is to transform property management businesses and their owners. And so we really have this intention to transform the industry. I feel like there's a big need for that the industry is in its infancy, that there's a need for expansion in the market, in market share, instead of everyone competing and fighting over the existing market share, which is relatively small right now. And we believe and have a vision of creating internally. Our goal is to create similar to you in having a number of like 500,000 lives that you're impacting. We have a critical number of having, I want to create 300 clients, 300 property management entrepreneurs, this army of 300, similar to King Leonidas, who was the warrior king, that are out there creating a serious impact and a difference and growing market share in property management. And it's doing things very differently. And so this is like what we focus on as a team. This is what we have conversations about. And it shifts the entire focus when you have a vision and you have a direction you're headed and you have values that you espouse, that you share and relate to your team on a regular basis. And it becomes very clear when team members don't align with those values, right? The whole team can feel it. You can just look at your values and go, okay, does this team member have this? It becomes pretty apparent and they're not a good fit. But if you don't have those values, before I had gotten clear on a lot of this stuff, I had a lot of team members that really didn't share my values. And so when I got clear and wrote those out and just looked at them and then looked at my team, I was like, there's a disconnect. And so having that clarity, I think, is critical. So one thing in all the things that you were saying, one thing that really came across to me is that in your culture, in your business, there is a high level of safety. It just sounds like, I mean, there's no way a team communicates well or feels able to do what they really want to do. And there's this sense of safety, it seems, in your business. And how do you feel like that's been created? Because a lot of people don't feel safe in their jobs.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's safety is a really cool way to put it. I actually had a conversation about something similar yesterday we just got an HR consultant that works for us about 20 hours a week, which, I love the show The Office, but man, I love our HR. I love our HR person. I don't know what Toby's problem was, but our HR person is awesome. But we were talking about that exact thing in terms of leadership. And so, I guess going back to your question was, what created it or what it's like. I think it's an openness to ideas. It's an openness to not always being right. And it's not and then, creating a culture where you're not afraid to just speak up, even if it's a little bit of a crazy idea. One of our employees one time had an idea that we should get a helicopter and start showing properties via helicopter. And it was actually something that we took a few minutes to analyze it. And, when you just are open to ideas and it doesn't have to be about you, it can be a focus on somebody else. I think that really opens a lot of people's ideas and allows them to be creative. And when there's not a fear of that, I think that you're successful as an organization. Not that there's never been a time in our company where somebody wasn't, looked at oddly for sharing something. But I think, again, I go back to that trust aspect. And I think that is that's what makes the difference for us internally, especially, is that we trust each other. We know we can rely on each other. We know that we're going to be there for each other. And our clients feel the same way and our customers feel the same way. Now, again, not every single one of them. Our Yelp score would say that we're the worst company on the face of the earth, but I don't judge myself on Yelp. And again, I think, when there's just a lack of judgment, just to reiterate the point, when there's a lack of judgment and you talk to people as if they're human beings, not as objects, which is something that I think through creating the living experience that we want to, I think that really goes a long way in creating safety externally as well to our clients and our customers. So I think it's just being open and honest and not being afraid to give each other negative feedback because we know it's the right thing to do is the kind of the last part of that. If there's a fear of, oh, I wonder why this person is telling me that I did this wrong or that I'm not performing up to par. If somebody thinks there's an ulterior motive there, you're not feeling safe. You're not feeling trusted in a trusting environment. And I think when you have a constant, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're doing poorly, let's work on this together. I think that opens those trust and communication and safety doors. And that goes up and down. My folks can come to me and tell me I'm doing a bad job when they think so as well. And again, I think just having that environment creates a safe space for everybody.
I think there's this temptation among entrepreneurs that as they start to grow and as they start to build a team, there's this myth or this belief that they need to know everything, that they need to be like the smartest guy in the room, that they need to have all the answers. And at some point, as they try to build a team, they have to give up this idea that they are the best or the smartest at anything. And they have to give that up. And that's everything that gets them to that stage of growth, they have to give up. And it's really challenging.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, especially in this business, I like what you said earlier about this business kind of being in its infancy, I think is how you put it. I totally agree. And that's part of why our vision statement is about setting the standard in our industry and having innovative employees who are constantly trying to raise the bar. But you're exactly right. You go from this, hey, I'm doing everything. I'm sending out leases. I'm doing inspections. I'm doing renewal letters. And that's your skill set that you've built, right? And that's why you're successful. To suddenly, I've got to teach somebody else how to do that and inspire them how to do it, and or inspire them to do it, right? Because we've all had employees that maybe aren't as inspired as they possibly could be. And that's the real challenge. And I think it kind of goes back to that foundation of how do you attract the right people? How do you find the people who you can speak to and they kind of understand your language? It's like the language of love. I don't know if you're married or not, but if you've read that book,
the five love languages.
The 5 love languages. That's right. Finding those people that relate to you and can understand it. And then, being open and willing to accept the fact that somebody along the line, if you have 2, 3, 10, 25, 50 employees, somebody is probably going to know more than you. They're going to have a better way to do things than you. And if you are not open to that, I'm not saying that you're a bad person or anything. That's fine. If you want to be a dictator and that's the way you want to run your business and it's got to be this way, and I'm not open to listening to new ideas, you have to find the people that are going to be inspired by somebody who has no want or need for other ideas. You can run a successful business that way. I wouldn't do that for my business because we wouldn't be able to attract the people that we want here.
Yeah, I think the challenge is none of us want to be the emperor with no clothes.
Right.
And you quickly become the emperor with no clothes if you shift into a dictatorship type of role and you shoot down ideas. You don't create a space of safety and trust. Now, another challenge that you'll see in organizations. So I've been a part of large companies, large organizations like HP, Verizon. And so one of the challenges that the bigger an organization gets when there isn't clarity in vision and purpose, and in making sure that you really keep people, attract people that are a good fit, is gossip and office politics. So how at Dodson do you guys kind of feel you nip that in the bud or prevent that from festering and growing as a cancer in the business?
Yeah, that is a difficult thing that I don't think we have that problem right now. I'm not certain that we've run into it, and putting my finger on exactly why, I think just kind of goes back to that trust aspect. And the open dialogue that we have both upwards and downwards. We're constantly evaluating our folks and giving people feedback, allowing for them to give each other feedback, allowing them to give their managers feedback. And not that that's going to solve all problems. The politics question, I think once you find somebody who's playing office politics, I think it's important to probably get that person out of your organization as quickly as possible. And the gossip thing, you're never going to get all the gossip out. I think setting the expectation that if you're having a conversation behind closed doors about somebody, it should be one that you're willing to have straight to their face. I think that's something that we've done from the get-go as well, is let's not have a conversation about somebody that we wouldn't be willing to have right to their face. And I think it's been difficult to translate that at times. We just ran into a situation with one of our offices that isn't our main headquarters in Richmond, where some of that stuff was going on. And it really ended up taking care of itself because it just didn't feel right to the other people at the office. And that person, wasn't accepting of, like I said, the open dialogue. It was blaming other people and lack of accountability. And I think when you instill that accountability value in people, it really presents itself as quite obvious, and those people end up not really fitting in at all. I think Verizon and places like the HP, where you've got thousands of employees, I'd like to have that problem one day, but I don't think we've had that problem quite yet. I'm sure that's you run into these situations, companies that big, and even as a company our size, you run into a situation, somebody leaves from an important role, you acquire a large book of business, and suddenly you need to hire somebody quickly. And, that's not what we like to do. We like to hire slow, fire fast. And I think it's unavoidable at times when you run into those situations, but you really got to pay attention to you got to have a pipeline of people ready to fill in. And then you do really have to pay attention to that fire fast aspect.
So could you share with some of the listeners and viewers of this, some of the feedback mechanisms that you have in your business? Because I think this really sounds like a critical piece to what you guys do and create internally in your culture.
Yeah, absolutely. The most important, well, I guess there's two now that I'm analyzing it, but we have relatively structured weekly one-to-ones or bi-weekly one-to-ones, depending on a number of factors. But, those are opportunities to give feedback both ways. The employee or the managed employee has an opportunity to speak first, and then we get into the manager discussions. And we also have a mechanism that we call our people analyzer. And this is not a idea that Dodson Property Management came up with. It's ripped straight out of a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. It's an entrepreneurial operating system. And basically what it does is it allows you to analyze the performance and have a discussion both about your performance piece and your culture fit piece. And we do this quarterly, and it's a little bit of a diagram that I'd love to draw, but unfortunately we're on a podcast. So essentially it just allows you to grade people on how they're doing skills wise and performance wise. And then you write out each of your values and you give them pluses or minuses based on how they're fitting your values. And generally that just opens up, a lot of discussion. And we are also fortunate where we've got employees, for the most part, the people who have been working here for a while and the people who are successful here are fairly self-aware. So when you bring up a point, it's usually not something that people don't know already. And so that allows, again, for just open, honest discussion. And I think one of the main points, the main pieces that we're really working on right now is the people manager aspect for kind of middle management. So our senior property managers, some of them, back to our discussion about the entrepreneur passing on his skill set and kind of his or her skill set, and, kind of changing from I'm a doer to I'm an inspirer. There's a little bit of that in middle management that needs to happen, where you need to be able to evaluate talent. You need to be able to have these conversations. You need to be able to help people with their personal goals and their career development. And you need to be able to, absolutely make sure people are doing inspections and leases and things like that. So it's a totally different skill set from maybe what you were successful at as you were a property manager or an assistant property manager. So developing those people and making sure that they have the again, I guess it's a skill set to manage people effectively. I think that's also a big part of that as well.
Great. So you mentioned becoming an inspirer, and so I wanted to touch on this. So the one phrase that kind of a mantra that I have internally that I picked up along the road or along the way was, whenever we fail to inspire, we always control. And so what that means is, whenever we are not inspiring somebody, they aren't like choosing into it and choosing into our vision, they don't feel inspired to do the things we want them to do, we by default then shift into a controlling sort of state. Like, we want to control them and force them to do this. And if we can take a step back and recognize, all right, am I getting resistance, which means I'm trying to control them? How am I failing to inspire them, and how can I inspire them to do this? And this goes back to my philosophy with hiring is really simple. So I have a really simple rule. I think a lot of times we make it really hard and we try to figure all this stuff out. But I have one main question that I ask people when I'm hiring somebody. I figure out what I want, these people to be doing, and what that person, that would be a good fit for that would love doing. It should be that thing. And then I just ask them, what do you most enjoy doing? Like, tell me about previous jobs. What did you most love about that job? Or what did you not enjoy doing? I want to make sure this is a good fit. And it's really just about them having this natural, innate, hardwired love towards doing the type of work that they're going to be doing in that role, is my philosophy, because they will be far better at that role than anybody else. And you don't have to like motivate them to do it. They will naturally just choose into doing that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I may actually steal that. It's a little bit like, I always ask a question, what are you passionate about? Because I like to find people that are passionate about people and passionate about work and passionate about making a difference, whether it's in work or job life. Similar philosophies. The skills of being a property manager can be taught fairly simple. It's not rocket science, right? It's being nice to people. It's opening up doors. It's looking for water leaks. That can be taught to people, but it kind of goes back to what your culture is, right? You're asking that question because you want to know if somebody fits your culture and can and doesn't need to be, it doesn't sound like you're a hand holder, right? You want to give somebody the creative space to work and allow them to be successful within that space. If you were a big hand holder, you would probably ask about proficiencies in this and that and the other thing, and I really believe that that's, again, a question that's a basis on getting somebody in that fits your culture and that does not need to be overly managed. Your original thought process, your controlling thought process, got me thinking a little bit. I'm actually reading this book, Leadership from the Inside Out, right now, and working on a few exercises. And there are some great, really just the first 60 pages have been awesome. And there's some great exercises in there, but it's made me kind of think about inspiration differently. And it's made me think about the way you show up to everything, right? We've got, whether it's a persona or an ego, not ego in a bad way, but there's an authenticity about this, and we're choosing how we show up in each one of these interactions, whether it's the smallest interaction with an employee or a big HR nightmare. You choose how you show up, and I think all of these things we've been talking about are connected. And I think authenticity as a leader and an inspirer is the number one thing you can be. If I'm not living our vision, mission, and values, or I'm not being authentic to who I am, and I think I need to present myself in some way, people are going to be able to feel that out eventually. And it does you no favors as a leader to present yourself in a way you're not. And you just have to be aware of it, and you have to be aware of what people see. And if you want to be yourself, I think that's the best way to be in business, honestly.
Yeah, I think it takes some courage to be emotionally and mentally transparent, to be vulnerable with people, but that's the only way to create safety, I feel, in an organization. So that tells me that your boss and yourself, if you have a team that feels safe, that you guys have a sense and this ability to be willing to, you feel safe yourself. You feel safe yourself in sharing and being vulnerable and sharing these kind of things. Kind of like, I'm not really a big fan of the word authentic, because I feel like when people are like, hey, let's be authentic, or can we all be our authentic self? They're kind of saying, hey, I've been lying this whole time, and now I'm going to not do that. Right? Like, okay, what were we doing before? Because that concerns me. Right? And so this idea of authenticity gets pushed around a lot. But I feel like we, as managers, leaders, or entrepreneurs running a company, or CEOs, we have to create this safety. And so it's interesting. Naturally, what I will do during a hiring process, if I'm doing the hiring directly, I will, if I'm asking them, what do you most enjoy doing, and what don't you enjoy doing? Because I want to make sure this is a good fit. And then I give them an example for myself. Like, I don't like writing out contracts and proposals. That's not fun for me. It's not like, and I don't want to say, I can do graphic design very well, but I don't want to sit in front of Photoshop 8 hours a day. That's just not, I don't get excited about that. It's kind of cool to be creative. That's not like my purpose in life. But I love doing this, and I love doing that. I love helping people. I love sharing. I love teaching, this sort of thing. And that's just kind of who I am. So I share that with them, and I say, tell me about you. Like, what do you most love and enjoy doing? And then and I just let them know, because I want to help you. I want to make sure this is a really good fit, because if it isn't a good fit, we're both going to be less happy. And there might be other roles that we have that are a better fit. And I've had that happen where somebody, was marketing and advertising themselves as a writer, and I was looking at them as a writer. But I saw that after talking with them and looking at their skill set and getting, a perception about really who they are and what they really love doing, they made a fantastic assistant for me. I had that person as an assistant for like 3 years, and she was an amazing assistant. And I saw this diamond in the rough, and she was billing herself out as this low dollar, like, writer. She was this rock star assistant. And by the time she left me, she was making a lot of money, and she moved on to even higher and better things. So I think we need to see beyond what people are kind of saying they are, and find out where do they really start to come alive? Where do you see them becoming happy, and help lead them into that? And when we really put our time, energy, and effort into our team and supporting our team, because a lot of times we think their job is to make us money and to make things work. And we look at, like, they have to make a certain amount of money so that they're worth being, on our team, instead of how can I support them in doing this? And so going back to your feedback methods ideas, usually I've got like 2 main questions that I'll ask team members that I want to know. Because I want the team members I bring on, I want them to be able to just do whatever it is that they need to do. If they're a graphic designer, I want them to just be able to do the graphic design. I want them to be able to communicate with the client about it. I want them to handle it instead of me. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, I think we make the mistake as we build out a team of making our life tactically harder. We want to control everything instead of give it over to somebody else and trust them to do a good job, and give them, and then support them and give them the guidance and tools and resources, and allow them to do their own thing. And it requires you feeling safe with other people and giving that up to them. But I ask them usually 2 questions, like, where are you winning? We want to celebrate the wins. And I think a lot of times in business, especially as entrepreneurs, we succeed, we win, but we don't pay attention to it. We just keep moving towards this goal, or we move on to the next pain, or the next challenge, or the next fire. And we don't celebrate these wins. And I feel like that in our culture, this is a big deal. Like, if we get on a new client, or if we help a client get some new doors, or a client is growing or succeeding, like, we tell each other and we celebrate these things. If we get a website launched, we announce it, and then everybody says, yay, and this sort of thing. And this is a bit more challenging because we're a virtual team, right? I don't have like them around me where I can touch and, talk directly to them. So we've created this environment. The other thing I want to know, besides their wins and successes, because I want to celebrate their wins. I want them to feel like they're winning always, right? The other thing I like to ask is, where do you feel stuck or need support? Like, how can I support and help you? Because they're supporting me all the time, helping me, but how can I help and support them? And I think that's where we shift into this leadership role, more almost like a coach type of role, where we are allowing them to give us the feedback. And that's very safe because they can say, okay, well, yeah, I'm feeling a bit stuck on this, or I'm having a challenge with this client. Okay, cool. Can I help with that? Or have you tried this? Or what do you feel like you need support wise? And so between those two things, I feel like that creates momentum in a team member. And we're either in a state of momentum or we're stuck. And so sometimes just asking, like, where are you stuck? I feel like can be really empowering in leadership to be able to help them out.
That's really,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's really good. I like both of those things. I think in your point about if you don't stop for a minute when you do something well, or when you don't celebrate those, as you put them, what are your successes, right? We call them quick wins, and then and then we can give each other what we call big ups, meaning kind of like a shout out for doing something great. But if you don't stop and take a minute to actually celebrate that, as a fast moving, super fast paced business that is constantly fires, sometimes literally, more often metaphorically, you get stuck in this kind of like negative vibe around the office, and you can feel it.
Yeah.
And if you don't spend time focusing on some of these wins and some of the successes, you're really just setting yourself up for failure and burnout, honestly. I don't know if that's the way it works in your business as well, but it just seems that way for us. So I love that you asked those two questions. Those are awesome.
I think also, as a company and a culture, if you don't celebrate your wins, you're not just missing out on celebrating the wins, but you're destroying your wins.
Oh yeah.
Because what happens is you're creating an environment where if a team member does something good or creates something good, you're basically saying it didn't matter. And there's nothing more defeating to a team member than to be working their ass off to try and create and do and help you achieve your goals and vision of, hitting some critical number of clients, or hitting some sort of impact, or making a difference, or whatever, to then negate that and say, yeah, you got that, but let's move on, or let's just like sweep that under the rug and not even make a big deal about it. And so when we don't celebrate the wins, and that's kind of the default, is to not celebrate the wins. Like, okay, we didn't screw up. Great. Let's keep going. So if we intentionally create a focus on a regular basis to celebrate those wins and create a culture around that, we create a team that feels like they're winning. And that's an inspired team.
Oh yeah. And it goes from everything from, those external wins of helping clients achieve goals, or you hit a sales goal or whatever it is, to just even something internally. Like, I can tell you, I've made some terrible mistakes in this business, and a couple of them have been around these specific things. And I had the person who really runs our single family division. Her name is Elizabeth Kane. And all of our property managers report directly to her. She came to me one day, I don't know, several months ago, and said, in 2016, we didn't really promote from within. And I feel that from people. And I started thinking, after we had those meetings, because, promoting from within is something we always want to do. Walking away from that meeting, and I started thinking,
so
I was like, well,
instead of promoting from within, you were like, you need a new role, so you would hire somebody.
Exactly. Yep. And so I left that meeting and started thinking about it. And again, it was a great meeting, because she was giving me some really, probably difficult for her to give me feedback, but it really helped me think about some things. But a different point, we had promoted from within 3 times in 2016, but I didn't do a good job of celebrating that. And so it got to the point where she didn't even remember that we had promoted people on her team from within, because there was no celebration, and there was no, hey, you did such a great job, and this is the reason we're giving you this promotion, and we should have done something in front of people. And it can go, it's easy from, instead of giving somebody a gift card because they're doing a great job in private, maybe have that private conversation, but also give it to people in front of others. First of all, it's a celebration. Second of all, if somebody's doing a great job, it's probably because they're doing a good job with your mission, vision, and values. It gives you an opportunity to reinforce that as well. So your whole point right there if nobody walks away with anything else, take that, the celebrating the wins and not letting an opportunity like that pass by, because people get disgruntled when you don't celebrate wins, and it has an impact on your team to the point where people don't remember when actually good things happen.
They're like, nah, yeah, it didn't even happen, because nobody. This is the thing about memory, and why memory is so faulty, is that memory, as far as a logical memory, with which data and facts, like what the temperature was yesterday, this kind of thing, that memory doesn't even seem to exist unless there's emotion attached to it, right? Everybody remembers what they were doing and what the day was somewhat like on 9/11. That was around right at that time. People remember because there was a lot of emotion attached to that. But maybe the day before, maybe even the day after, like there was no emotion attached to that. And so if you can attach positive anchors and positive emotion to these different events that you want them to remember, you want them to remember these wins. And we want our team members to remember our successes in achieving our vision as a company, because it validates what we're doing. It validates that our mission is accurate, that we're moving in the right direction, which creates this momentum. The second we take our eyes off of that, we don't know the scoreboard. We don't know how we're doing. And that like instantly kills momentum if we don't have a clear outcome to move towards, and B, we don't know the scoreboard. Like, where are we at? Like, it'd be like playing a basketball game and they're like, well, we're not going to like keep score on the board, but we'll tell you at the end. It's like, okay, did we make it? At the end, we think we did. Yeah. So
yeah. Usually when I'm playing, I'd rather not look at the score, but I get your point.
So no, I love these ideas that you're sharing. So Dodson has gotten to this large scale of growth. You've got these multiple businesses. So for property managers internally, right, you've got the multifamily side, the single family side, the commercial management side. So for property managers that are just starting out, that are small, this is the majority of them out there, right? The majority of them out there have like probably under 100 doors. They can't figure out how to grow beyond that. They're not even at the point where they can afford to even get their first team member. What sort of advice would you maybe give to these guys in terms of creating this culture and all this stuff? Like, how do we bring this down to their level?
Sure. Well, that's a great question. So I think, and I know you don't like it, but I'll go back to a little bit of authenticity in that whether you're one person or two people, what makes you successful on a sales call, Jason or Ray Hespin, for example? I know him very well. He does feel, again, I know you don't like it, but authentic when you're talking.
You can say authentic. You can say authentic.
And I think when you sit back and think about it, and you think about what makes you successful on a sales call, or successful when you meet with a client or with possible new agent that you're going to bring on, you really have to analyze what that success looks like and what made you successful. And I think additionally, you need to think about what your goals are overall. Not everybody needs to be 1,475 units like we do, and hopefully more. Not everybody needs to be 300 units. Not everybody needs to be 100 units. You need to figure out what your goals are, write them down, hopefully share them with somebody, because that's important, and figure out how you've gotten from point A to point B, and if you want to get to point C, or if 75 doors is fine, or if 200 doors is where you want to be, write it down, figure out how you're going to get there. Usually it takes a little bit of sacrifice. Like you said, sometimes people can't even afford to hire an assistant. There's a number of wonderful ways to supplement that with virtual assistants these days. That seems to be the new hot thing. I think you even had a podcast on that, if I remember correctly. I think if growth is one of your goals, like I said, I'm not certain there's one specific formula that works as far as AdWords or whatnot. You would probably be able to tell people better than I would on that. But write down what's making you successful and try to mirror that everywhere you go, and try to represent that with every conversation you have, and people will start believing in you when they see it.
Yeah, I love it. Figure out what's working and do more of that. Right?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? And when you put it like that, but it sounded much more grandiose when I said it. No, but that's seriously what it is, right? I mean, if people see something and it's who you are and it's what you're bringing to the table and it's working, why change it, right? That's why we very easily, as we're getting to 100 employees, could have buttoned up our culture, and I could be wearing the tie that's sitting on my board there.
Yeah. And
we could have become this corporate, entity. And I almost, I'm on the national board with NARPM, and sometimes we've got to wear suits when we're out in front of members. And I'm thinking, I don't know that fits what NARPM is, right? I enjoy dressing up and wearing suits. Don't get me wrong. Hopefully Steve Schultz isn't listening, but what we could have changed who we were to try to match what corporate needs to be, right? But we stayed who we are, and we continue to find success in that. There's something that people like about that, and there's something that people are drawn to you for a reason. Jason, I'm sure you've got clients that referred somebody to you because they like talking to you. I've enjoyed our conversation today, and
thank you.
There's just something, I think there's something about when you just find what's working and you sit down and analyze it and you say, oh, I had a great conversation with that person because we're able to relate on so many different levels. Let's try to expand on that and see where that will take us.
So Tim, this has been awesome. So let's recap some of the things that are just universal that we touched on, because a lot of the things that you're doing will apply to any property manager or any business owner in any situation. One, get clear on your purpose. What is the real purpose for this business and this company? What are your values that are important to you and that you want your team to also espouse? And getting clear on those things internally, and then have a vision. Where do you guys want to be in a year? Where do you guys see yourself eventually? And I think having those, so you talk about vision, values, and this mission, this sort of thing. And my recommendation would be to steer away from just a standard mission statement. Like, you've got this thing memorized, like you know it by heart. I know mine internally by heart. I would imagine most of my team members could probably come fairly close to stating what the vision is. At least they understand energetically what that is, and they could relate that, even if they don't get it word for word, our exact, why statement for the business.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be something that is real, not something that you've scripted, put on paper, and stuck up on a wall that nobody even can remember or talks about, right? And
right.
And it's probably something that is reiterated in every sales conversation. It's reiterated in every, hiring interview, because it matters. It matters to attracting the right types of clients. It matters to attracting the right types of people. And it's important. And so often we get caught up in going around telling everybody what we do. We do property management. We do this, we do that. And people, like Simon Sinek says in his famous video, he says, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it.
Right.
And so I love that. That's universal. That'll apply to anybody. So thank you for sharing that. And then the other thing is, you guys have thousands of doors. But one thing that I like that you guys talked about, you have like a critical number. You have this number of impact that you want to have. It's not the number of, property management contracts you're going to close, for example. It's outward focused, and it's some sort of positive impact that's beyond that. And so I also wanted to point that out, that I think that is great, because your team members, not everybody on the team directly benefits by you getting on a certain number of contracts, but everybody benefits that is inspired by your vision, and it chooses into this vision by seeing that vision accomplished and seeing this difference made to all those people.
Sure. Yeah. And it's not only that some people don't, it's not even that everyone in our organization necessarily doesn't benefit from more contracts. Sometimes more contracts is a negative for them. It's more work. It's
right. That's true.
Longer hours and so you're exactly correct. When we make it about others and we make it about the impact on the community that we can have and the impact on tenants, we do a lot of low end stuff. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but we do a lot of lower end stuff. And there's a lot of those folks who've been taken advantage of for a long time. And there are a lot of those folks that live in places that, I wouldn't necessarily want to go into if I wasn't in this business. And having a responsibility in providing that same experience to those people as the people that live in your highest end, townhouse or home or whatever it may be. Finding people who get excited about that. It doesn't matter how many contracts you have, and it doesn't matter what your revenue is at the end of the year. And so that's really authentically what we want to be about, and taking care of people. So anyway, continue. Go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the other thing I really love that you talked about, or that we can recognize that can be applied to any business, is having feedback mechanisms in place. So even if you're just a solopreneur running a property management business, if you have a feedback mechanism in place, we've talked about, probably a little bit on previous episodes, or people have seen our Gather Kudos service, but having some sort of feedback mechanism in place to get feedback from your clients, feedback from your tenants, and allowing that level of communication. And then when you start bringing on team members, if that's part of your kind of environment and culture, you've got feedback mechanisms in place that allow you to know how your team's doing, know the perception of how other people perceive you are doing, and being willing to allow feedback for yourself and in the business, and not being, resistant to all of that, which creates, some big blind spots, I think, in business. So I love the idea of feedback mechanisms, and that you had talked about. And you'd also mentioned the book Traction, which I'm going to have to check out. And
Traction's a good one. And feedback, like you said, whether you're one person or 100 people, we use Gather Kudos. Property Meld has a feedback mechanism. We are constantly, when we were talking earlier about the external stuff, we are constantly, every month we send out a client and tenant survey to all of our clients and tenants to try to make ourselves better. And that's what it's all about, right? It's delivering the experience you want to. And how do you gauge whether you're delivering that experience or not?
Yeah, there's no way to know. I mean, this is a dangerous place to be as a property manager or a business owner, to assume and say, I think my team's happy.
Right.
Or I think our clients really like us. But do you really know? Do you know for certain that your clients are happy and like you? We're a great property manager. You can say that, and you probably said it so many times during your sales pitches, you believe it's true. But there's this subtle fear, or this lack of certainty, when you don't really know what sort of results you're creating out there. And so when you get connected to that, this confidence that comes out in sales becomes far more powerful. And so I love the whole idea of feedback. So these are all really fantastic ideas and principles. Tim, I really appreciate you coming out and sharing with us a little bit on, about the inside and inner workings of Dodson Property Management. How can people find out about you or connect with you, and what takeaway do you want people to have from this?
People can get in touch with me any way they want to. DodsonPropertyManagement.com. My mug is on there. Unfortunately, that's probably bad for marketing, but my email's long, but it's easy. It's tim@DodsonPropertyManagement.com. I love talking to people about whether it's company culture specifically or just business in general. I've been doing this now for about a decade, and there's always stuff I'm learning. So people often call me to try to get opinions on something, and I end up taking away more than they do. So call me, text me, email me. I love to talk about property management. I love to talk about companies and businesses. That's the takeaway. Get in touch with me, because I love doing stuff like this, Jason. Thanks so much for having me. This has certainly been the highlight of my day, and I had a really good sandwich for lunch, so that's saying a lot.
Well, good. I'm glad we trumped the sandwich. So
yeah, it was delicious. It was like a pork shoulder thing. It was really good.
We had a delicious conversation. So
that's right.
Tim, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming out here on the DoorGrow show. And maybe we'll have you
Absolutely.
back.
You gotta let me get a quick Snapchat though. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, we'll do some Snapchats here. Get a quick photo.
There we go. We're getting snapping here.
You're not gonna. Oh, you're looking at it and this. Okay, so we're gonna reverse.
Yeah, I got it on screen and I got me. So, and I got my keels there in the shot as well. So
I've got it's.
Yeah, and people can follow me on Snapchat. My last name, the number 1, Tim is my what do they call it on Snapchat? Call sign or handle or whatever it is.
I don't know.
Call sign sounds cooler.
Cool. And you can connect with me and follow me. Connect with me on Snapchat too. So it's King Jason Hull. I'm that on all social media. King Jason Hull. So
I'm gonna write that down. We'll get together.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you coming out.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.